My name is Elena Rossi, and for 23 years of my life, I was practically invisible. Not the romantic kind of invisible you see in movies, where the protagonist is secretly beautiful behind thick glasses. No, I was genuinely unremarkable. Mousy brown hair, average height, clothes that always seemed a size too big for me. I worked as a librarian at the San Marco Public Library, a small town where everyone knew everyone, except for me. Even after 3 years of living here, I was still the new girl at the library, as if my name was too difficult to remember. My routine was predictable. Wake up at 7, have coffee alone, walk 15 minutes to the library, organize books, help the few visitors, eat lunch alone, more books, then home for dinner, alone. Weekends were devoted to reading and the occasional grocery run, where the cashier didn't even make eye contact with me. I had grown accustomed to this life. Actually, I even liked the tranquility. Books never judged me, never ignored me. They were company enough. It was on a rainy Tuesday in October that my life changed completely. I was reorganizing the classics section when I heard the library door open with more force than usual. I didn't look up. Probably Mr. Martinez looking for another Western romance. But then I heard voices whispering urgently, and something in their tone made me pay attention. "Are you sure he didn't follow us?" asked a deep masculine voice. "I'm sure, but we can't stay long," replied another, younger one. Curious, I peeked through the shelves. 3 men in dark suits stood near the entrance, nervously watching the street. They weren't the type who frequented our small library. Their suits were expensive, too expensive for San Marco, and there was something in their posture that made me uneasy. The man in the center was clearly the leader. Tall, broad-shouldered, with jet black hair slicked back, and a jawline that could cut glass. Even from a distance, I could see his eyes were an unusual shade of gray, almost silver. He moved with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Marco, keep watch," he ordered the younger man. "Vincent, check if there's a back exit." My heart started racing. These weren't ordinary visitors. The way they talked, the way they moved, it was like something out of a crime movie. I should have minded my own business. Should have gone back to organizing books and pretended I hadn't seen anything. But curiosity had always been my weakness. I crept closer, hiding behind a tall shelf of encyclopedias. The leader was now examining a map spread across one of the reading tables, his finger tracing what looked like routes through the city. "The shipment arrives Thursday night," he said quietly. "We need to ensure the path is clear. No police, no rivals." My breath caught. Shipment? This was definitely not a book club meeting. That's when it happened. In my nervous state, I knocked over a stack of books I'd been carrying. The sound echoed through the silent library like thunder. All 3 men spun around, hands moving instinctively to their jackets. The leader's silver eyes locked onto mine with laser precision. I felt pinned in place, like a butterfly on a board. "Well, well," he said, his voice smooth as silk, but with an undertone that sent shivers down my spine. "What do we have here?" I stood frozen behind the encyclopedia shelf, clutching the remaining books to my chest like a shield. The 3 men were all staring at me now, and I could practically feel the tension crackling in the air. "Just a librarian," Vincent said dismissively. "Should we—" "No." The leader's voice cut through Vincent's suggestion like a blade. His eyes never left mine as he walked slowly toward my hiding spot. "Come out, little mouse. No point hiding now." My legs felt like jelly, but somehow I managed to step out from behind the shelf. Up close, he was even more intimidating. He towered over my 5'4" frame, and those silver eyes seemed to see straight through to my soul. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice deceptively gentle. "Elena," I stammered. "Elena Rossi." A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Italian. How fitting." He studied me for a moment, tilting his head slightly. "How much did you hear, Elena Rossi?" I could lie. Should lie. But something about his gaze made deception feel impossible. "Enough," I whispered. He nodded approvingly. "Honest, I like that." He turned to his companions. "Marco, Vincent, give us some privacy." "Boss, are you sure?" Vincent looked concerned. She could what?" The leader's tone turned dangerous. "Are you questioning my judgment, Vincent?" "No, sir." "Of course not." Vincent quickly backed down, and both men retreated to the front of the library. Now it was just me and him, the most dangerous-looking man I'd ever encountered, and somehow, impossibly, I felt intrigued rather than terrified. "What's your full name?" I found myself asking, surprising myself with my boldness. His eyebrows rose slightly. "You're asking me questions now. That's refreshing." He extended a hand. "Dante Castellano." Even if I hadn't overheard their conversation, that name would have meant something. The Castellanos were notorious in the region, a powerful family that everyone whispered about, but no one dared cross. "You're not going to faint?" he asked, amusement coloring his voice. Should I? Most people do, or run screaming. He was studying me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You're different, aren't you, Elena? Different." It was the first time anyone had called me that, and meant it as a good thing. "I suppose I am," I admitted. "You're not afraid of me." It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. "I'm terrified of you, but I'm also curious." Something shifted in his expression. The dangerous edge softened slightly, replaced by what looked like genuine interest. Curious about what? About why the most feared man in the region is hiding in a library, looking at maps. He laughed, a rich, warm sound that transformed his entire face. "You really are something else, Elena Rossi." Before I could respond, Marco's voice called from the front. "Boss, we need to go. Now." Dante's expression immediately hardened again. Business mode. He reached into his jacket, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he was reaching for a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a business card. "If you tell anyone about today, there will be consequences," he said, but his tone was more warning than threat. "However, if you can keep a secret." He pressed the card into my hand. "Call me." Then he was gone, all three men disappearing through the front door as quickly as they'd arrived, leaving me alone with a racing heart and a business card that simply read, "Di Castellano," with a phone number. I stared at the card for a long time, my mind reeling. In the span of 10 minutes, my quiet, predictable life had been turned completely upside down. And the strangest part? I wasn't sorry about it. For 3 days, I carried Dante's business card everywhere. I'd take it out randomly, while shelving books, during my lunch break, before bed, and stare at those simple black letters on expensive white cardstock. Di Castellano. What did the D stand for anyway? I already knew it was Dante, but seeing just the initial made him seem more mysterious somehow, more dangerous. I told myself I wouldn't call. What would be the point? We lived in completely different worlds. He was a powerful, dangerous man who probably forgot about me the moment he left the library. I was nobody, a small-town librarian who had stumbled into something way over her head. But I couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at me, like I mattered, like I was someone worth paying attention to. It was Friday evening, and I was in my small apartment above the bakery, eating leftover pasta and reading a romance novel. The irony wasn't lost on me when I finally gave in to temptation. My hands shook as I dialed the number. It rang once, twice. Maybe he wouldn't answer. Maybe this was a mistake. "Elena." His voice sent electricity straight through me. He'd recognized my number, or maybe he just knew I'd eventually call. "How did you—" "I was wondering when you'd work up the courage," he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. 3 days. Longer than I expected from someone as curious as you. "I shouldn't be calling," I said quickly. "I don't know why Where are you?" The question caught me off guard. "What? Where are you right now?" At home." "Why?" "Address." I shouldn't tell him. Every rational part of my brain was screaming warnings, but I found myself giving him my address anyway. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said. "Wait, you don't need to." The line went dead. I spent the next 20 minutes in a panic. Should I change clothes? Clean my already clean apartment? Run away? Instead, I paced nervously, occasionally checking my reflection in the bathroom mirror and immediately regretting it. The knock on my door came exactly 20 minutes later. I opened it to find Dante holding a bottle of wine and looking completely out of place in the narrow hallway of my modest building. He'd traded his expensive suit for dark jeans and a black sweater, but somehow he still looked dangerous. Maybe it was the way he carried himself, or those piercing silver eyes that seemed to see everything. "You live above a bakery," he observed. "Rent's cheap. Smells like bread in the mornings." I was babbling. You brought wine." Seemed appropriate. He stepped closer. "May I come in?" I nodded and stepped aside, hyper-aware of how small my apartment probably seemed to someone like him. One room that served as living room, dining room, and kitchen, with a tiny bedroom and bathroom off to the side. My furniture was secondhand but clean, my bookshelves the nicest thing I owned. He surveyed the space with interest, his gaze lingering on the books. You read a lot. Occupational hazard. He moved to my bookshelf, running a finger along the spines. Romance novels, he noted. Do you believe in them? Happy endings? I want to, I admitted. Do you? He turned to look at me, and something in his expression made my breath catch. I didn't, until Tuesday. The air between us crackled with tension. This was insane. I was a nobody librarian about to... What? Have a drink with a mafia boss? This wasn't how my life was supposed to go. Why are you here, Dante? I asked quietly. He was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. You want honesty? I nodded. Because I can't stop thinking about you. His voice was rough, almost angry. For 3 days you've been in my head. The way you looked at me in that library, not with fear or greed or calculation, just curiosity. When was the last time someone looked at me and saw a person instead of a reputation? My heart hammered against my ribs. I don't understand why. Neither do I. He interrupted. You're not my type. You're not part of my world. You're everything I usually avoid. He stepped closer. But I can't stay away. Your world, I repeated. You mean the illegal kind? Yes. No denial. No attempt to sugarcoat it. I won't lie to you about what I am, Elena. I'm not a good man. But you're not a monster either, I found myself saying. A monster wouldn't warn me, wouldn't bring wine, wouldn't look at me like... I trailed off, suddenly embarrassed. Like what? Like I matter. Something shifted in his face. He reached up, gently tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. His touch was surprisingly gentle for hands that I suspected had done violent things. You do matter, he said quietly. More than you know. That night, Dante stayed for 3 hours. We drank wine, talked about books, and carefully avoided discussing his business or my complete lack of experience with men like him. When he left, it was with a promise to call me the next day and a kiss on my cheek that left me burning for hours afterward. He kept his promise, and the next day's promise, and the one after that. For 2 weeks, my life fell into a strange new rhythm. Days at the library, evenings with Dante. Sometimes he'd take me to dinner at restaurants I'd never dared enter before, where the staff treated him like royalty, and me like a queen by extension. Other times we'd stay in my small apartment, and he'd listen with genuine interest as I recommended books or told him about my day. He never pressed for more than I was ready to give, never made me feel like I owed him anything. But the tension between us grew stronger each day, like a wire being slowly tightened. I was falling for him, hard and fast and completely against my better judgment. The bubble burst on a Wednesday. I was working late at the library, cataloging a new shipment of books, when I heard the familiar sound of the front door opening. My heart leaped. Dante sometimes surprised me at work, but when I looked up, it wasn't him. It was Vincent, looking nervous and agitated. Miss Rossi? He approached the circulation desk cautiously. I need to speak with you. If this is about Dante, it's about your safety, he interrupted. And his. That got my attention. I set down my cataloging pen and gave him my full focus. There are people asking questions, Vincent continued. About you. About why the boss is spending time with a nobody librarian. No offense. None taken. I'd heard worse. What kind of questions? The dangerous kind. Look, Miss Rossi, I like you. You make him happy. And none of us have seen him happy in, well, ever. But you're a liability he can't afford. I haven't told anyone anything, I protested. It doesn't matter. Your connection to him puts you both at risk. The families we're in conflict with, they won't hesitate to use you against him. Vincent's expression was deadly serious. They'll hurt you to hurt him. And if they hurt you, he'll burn down half the state getting revenge, which starts a war none of us can win. Cold dread settled in my stomach. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe you should disappear for a while. Take a vacation. Visit family out of state. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to save your life, he said bluntly. And his. Because right now, you're his weakness. And in our world, weaknesses get people killed. After Vincent left, I sat alone in the empty library, my mind racing. I'd known getting involved with Dante was dangerous, but I'd been thinking in abstract terms. Vincent had made it concrete, real. I was putting Dante at risk just by existing in his life. When he called that evening, I almost didn't answer. "Elena, you sound strange." "Vincent came to see me today," I said without preamble. Silence. Then, "What did he tell you?" "That I'm a liability. That being with you puts us both in danger. Vincent needs to learn to mind his own business." "Is he wrong?" I pressed. Another long pause. "No," he admitted quietly. "He's not wrong." "Then why?" "Because I'm selfish," he said roughly. "Because for the first time in my adult life, I've found something worth more than power or money or respect. I've found you." My heart clenched. "Dante, I know it's selfish. I know I should walk away. Let you go back to your quiet life. But I can't, Elena. I physically cannot stay away from you. So what do? We're careful. We're smart. And we don't let anyone else dictate our choices." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love could conquer all, like in the romance novels I read. But Vincent's words echoed in my head. "Weaknesses get people killed." "I need to think," I said finally. "Elena, please, just give me tonight to think." He agreed, reluctantly, and we hung up. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, weighing my options. Stay with Dante and risk both our lives, or walk away and go back to being invisible. By morning, I'd made my decision. I called in sick to work the next day, the first time I'd ever used a sick day for emotional reasons, and spent the morning crafting what I thought would be a goodbye text to Dante. "I can't do this anymore. It's too dangerous for both of us. Please don't contact me again." I must have typed and deleted it 20 times before finally giving up. How do you break up with someone via text when you've never even officially been together? Instead, I decided to meet him in person. He deserved that much at least. I called his number. "Elena," the relief in his voice was palpable. "I was hoping you'd call. Can you meet me somewhere? We need to talk." "Of course." "Where?" I suggested the park downtown. Neutral territory. Public enough to be safe, but private enough for a difficult conversation. I arrived first and claimed a bench overlooking the small lake. It was a beautiful October day, the kind that made you believe in fresh starts and new beginnings. The irony wasn't lost on me. Dante appeared 10 minutes later, looking as devastatingly handsome as always in dark jeans and a leather jacket. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the wariness in his eyes. He knew this wasn't a social call. "You look like you're about to break up with me," he said, as he sat down beside me. "Are we together?" I asked. "I mean, officially?" "Elena." He turned to face me fully. "What's this about?" I took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what Vincent said, about the danger. And he's right, isn't he? Being with you puts us both at risk." "Yes," he admitted. And I'm not cut out for this world," I continued. "I don't know how to handle threats or violence or constantly looking over my shoulder. I'm just a librarian, Dante. A boring, ordinary librarian who reads too many romance novels and eats dinner alone every night." "You're not ordinary," he said fiercely. "You're extraordinary. You're kind and intelligent and brave enough to see past my reputation to who I really am. Do you know how rare that is?" "But is it enough?" I asked quietly. "Is it enough to justify the risk?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the lake. "What do you want me to say, Elena? That I'll give up everything for you? Walk away from my family, my responsibilities, my entire life? Would you?" "Yes." The answer came without hesitation, in a heartbeat. "If that's what you wanted." I stared at him in shock. "You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life." He reached for my hands. "I love you, Elena. I'm in love with you. Completely, irrevocably, dangerously in love with you." My heart stopped, then started again at double speed. "You love me? How could I not?" He brought my hands to his lips, pressing gentle kisses to my knuckles. "You walked into my life and turned everything upside down. Made me want things I never thought I could have. Made me believe I could be more than what I was born to be." "Dante," I was crying now, tears streaming down my face. "But I won't ask you to choose a life of danger for me," he continued. "If you want me to walk away, I will. It'll destroy me, but I'll do it. Because your safety matters more to me than my own happiness." This was it, the moment of choice. I could walk away now, go back to my safe, invisible life. Or I could choose him, choose love, choose the terrifying, exhilarating unknown. "I love you too," I whispered. His eyes widened. "Elena, I love you too," I said more firmly. "And I don't want to walk away. I want to fight for this, for us. I want to learn how to be brave enough to live in your world." He cupped my face in his hands, thumbs wiping away my tears. "Are you sure? Really sure? Because once I claim you publicly, there's no going back. You'll be mine in the eyes of everyone who matters, and that comes with protection, but also with permanent danger. I'm sure." He searched my face for any sign of doubt. Whatever he saw there must have satisfied him, because he leaned in and kissed me for the first time. It was soft and sweet and desperate all at once. A kiss that tasted like promises and new beginnings and forever. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Mine," he whispered. "Yours," I confirmed. Neither of us realized that Vincent had been right to worry, or that our declaration of love in such a public place had been witnessed by the wrong people. We were too caught up in each other to notice the photographer with the telephoto lens, or to realize that by tomorrow, our relationship would be front-page news in every gossip rag in the tri-state area. The headline would read, "Mafia Prince's Mystery Woman. Who is Elena Rossi?" And that single headline would change everything. I woke up Saturday morning to my phone ringing incessantly. Still half asleep, I fumbled for it, expecting to see Dante's name on the screen. Instead, it was my landlord, Mrs. Patterson from the bakery downstairs. "Elena, dear," she said without preamble, "there are reporters outside. Lots of them." "Reporters?" I sat up, suddenly wide awake. "What do you mean?" "With cameras and those big microphones. They keep asking about you. Something about you dating a Castellano?" My blood ran cold. I stumbled to my window and peeked through the blinds. Mrs. Patterson wasn't exaggerating. There had to be at least a dozen people with cameras and recording equipment crowded on the sidewalk below. "Oh God," I breathed. "Elena? What's going on?" I have to go, Mrs. Patterson. Don't tell them anything, please." I hung up and immediately called Dante. He answered on the first ring. "Elena, thank God. Are you at home?" "Yes, but there are reporters everywhere." "How did they—" "Someone photographed us yesterday at the park. The story broke this morning." His voice was tight with controlled anger. "Stay exactly where you are. Don't go outside. Don't answer the door. Don't even peek through the windows. I'm sending Marco to get you." "This is insane," I said, sinking onto my couch. "Why do they care about me?" "Because you're mine," he said simply. "And because the Castellano family has been in the news a lot lately. Our business rivals are trying to use federal attention to pressure us. And a mysterious girlfriend is exactly the kind of human interest angle the media loves. I'm not mysterious. I'm boring." "Not anymore, you're not." 20 minutes later, Marco knocked on my back door. Apparently, he'd climbed the fire escape to avoid the crowd out front. He was carrying a baseball cap and sunglasses. "Boss's orders," he said, handing them to me. "Keep your head down. Don't say anything to anyone." The next hour was surreal. Marco led me down the fire escape and through a maze of back alleys to where Vincent was waiting with a black SUV. The windows were tinted so dark I could barely see out, which I supposed was the point. They drove me to a house I'd never seen before. Large, elegant, surrounded by high walls and security cameras. Vincent punched in a code at the gate, and we drove up a circular driveway to the front door. "Where are we?" I asked. "Boss's private residence," Marco replied. "Safest place for you right now." Dante was waiting at the front door, and the relief on his face when he saw me was almost overwhelming. He pulled me into his arms without caring that his men were watching. "Are you okay?" he asked, his hands running over me as if checking for injuries. "I'm fine. Confused and terrified, but fine." He led me inside, and I had to struggle not to gawk. The house was beautiful. All marble floors and crystal chandeliers and artwork that probably cost more than I made in a year. But it was also clearly a fortress, with security panels every few feet, and the kind of reinforced windows that suggested they were bulletproof. "We need to talk," Dante said, leading me to what looked like a library, ironically appropriate. "This is my fault," I said as soon as we were alone. "I suggested meeting in public." "This is not your fault," he interrupted firmly. "This is the price of being with me, and I should have prepared you better." He showed me the newspaper. There, on the front page of the city's biggest tabloid, was a photo of us kissing in the park. The headline read exactly as he'd predicted: "Mafia Prince's Mystery Woman. Who is Elena Rossi?" I read the article with growing horror. They'd already dug up information about me, where I worked, where I lived, even quotes from my former neighbors back in my hometown. They'd painted me as either a gold-digging opportunist or an innocent lamb being led to slaughter, depending on which paragraph you read. Elena Rossi, 23, a small-town librarian with no previous connections to the Castellano organization. I read aloud. Sources close to the family suggest Dante Castellano's relationship with the unknown woman has caused significant tension within the organization. Ignore it, Dante said. It's all speculation. Is it? Are there really tensions in your family about me? He hesitated just long enough to give me my answer. Some of the older generation are concerned about outside influences, he admitted. But that's not your problem to solve. Everything about this is my problem now, I said, setting down the newspaper. My picture is on the front page. People know who I am, where I work. I can't exactly go back to my quiet life now. No, he agreed. You can't. The weight of that settled over me. My old life was gone, just like that. No more invisibility, no more peaceful days at the library, no more anonymity. What happens now? I asked. Now we adapt, he said. You'll stay here where it's safe. I'll have your things moved from your apartment, and we'll figure out the rest as we go. You want me to move in with you? I want you safe. Everything else is negotiable. I looked around the beautiful, intimidating room. This isn't exactly how I imagined moving in with someone would happen. He cupped my face in his hands. I know this isn't the life you signed up for. I know it's overwhelming and scary and completely insane. If you want out, tell me now. I'll find a way to protect you and get you safely away from all this. I studied his face, the sharp cheekbones, the silver eyes that could be cold as winter or warm as summer depending on his mood, the mouth that could issue deadly orders or whisper sweet words against my skin. This man loved me, enough to give up everything for me, enough to destroy his enemies to protect me, enough to let me go if I asked him to. I don't want out, I said firmly. I want in, all the way in. Something blazed in his eyes. Elena, but I have conditions. He raised an eyebrow. You're making demands of a mafia boss? I'm making requests of the man I love, I corrected. I want honesty. No more protecting me from the truth about your business or your world. I want to understand what I'm getting into. Done. And I want to meet your family. If I'm going to be part of your life, I need to understand where I fit in the bigger picture. That's more complicated, but yes. And I took a deep breath. I want us to be real partners, not you making all the decisions while I hide in your beautiful house. I may be new to this world, but I'm not helpless. He was quiet for a long moment. You realize what you're asking for? Real partnership in my world means knowing things that could get you killed, just for knowing them. I realize that. And you're okay with it? I thought about my quiet life, my invisible existence, my predictable routine. Then I looked at this incredible, dangerous, complicated man who loved me enough to risk everything. I'm okay with it, I said. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and full of promise. In that case, he said against my lips, welcome to the family. Sunday dinner at the Castellano house was apparently a sacred tradition, which is why, exactly 24 hours after my life had been splashed across every newspaper in the tri-state area, I found myself getting ready to meet Dante's extended family. You're nervous, Dante observed as I changed outfits for the third time. I'm terrified, I corrected, settling on a simple black dress that was hopefully sophisticated enough without trying too hard. What if they hate me? They won't hate you. What if they think I'm not good enough for you? Elena. He crossed the room and took my hands, stopping my anxious fidgeting. Look at me. I met his eyes in the mirror. My family has been waiting 30 years for me to find someone who makes me happy, he said. They're not going to hate the woman who accomplished what they all thought was impossible. But I'm nobody. Stop. His voice was firm. You're not nobody. You're the woman I love, the woman I plan to spend the rest of my life with. In my family, that makes you everything. The rest of my life. My heart skipped at the casual way he said it, like our future was already decided. Is that a proposal? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Would you say yes if it was? I studied his reflection. Are you asking? Not yet, he said, pressing a kiss to my temple. When I propose, Elena, it'll be perfect. And it'll be when you're ready to hear it. When, not if. The certainty in his voice sent warmth flooding through me. The Castellano family dinner was held in a private dining room at Salvatore's, an upscale Italian restaurant that Dante's uncle owned. By the time we arrived, the room was already full of people, maybe 20 adults and half a dozen children ranging from toddlers to teenagers. The conversation stopped when we walked in. Dante's hand found the small of my back, a reassuring presence as every pair of eyes in the room turned to assess me. I felt like a specimen under a microscope. "Everyone," Dante's voice carried easily over the sudden silence. "I'd like you to meet Elena." An older woman with silver hair and Dante's same gray eyes approached us. She had to be his mother. The resemblance was unmistakable. "So you're the girl who's captured my son's heart," she said, looking me up and down appraisingly. "Yes, ma'am," I managed. She continued her assessment for another long moment. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled. "You're prettier than your photograph, and you have good posture. I like that in a woman." "Thank you," she laughed. "I'm Francesca Castellano, Dante's mother, and you can call me Fran." The tension in the room seemed to ease slightly as Francesca accepted me. One by one, the other family members approached to be introduced. Uncles, aunts, cousins, family friends, a dizzying array of names and faces that I knew I'd never remember. But they were kind. Curious, certainly, and some were clearly still sizing me up, but kind. It was during the main course that things got interesting. "So, Elena," said Dante's Uncle Tony, a man who looked like he could bench press a car, "what do you think about our business?" The table went quiet. I could feel Dante tense beside me. "I think," I said carefully, "that every family has its own way of taking care of each other, and that it's not my place to judge." Tony nodded approvingly. "Diplomatic. I like that. But," I continued, and I felt Dante's hand tighten on his fork, "I also think that the people I love should know they can trust me with the truth. All of it." This time the silence was charged with electricity. Tony leaned back in his chair, studying me with new interest. "You want to know about our business?" he asked. "Uncle Tony," Dante warned. "No, it's okay," I said, meeting Tony's gaze steadily. "Yes, I do. If I'm going to be part of this family, I want to understand what that means." Tony smiled, a predator's smile. "You know what I think, Dante? I think you picked a smart one." The conversation moved on to safer topics after that, but I could feel the shift in how the family looked at me. I'd passed some kind of test by asking direct questions instead of pretending ignorance. After dinner, as the family mingled over coffee and dessert, Francesca pulled me aside. "Walk with me," she said, leading me to a quiet corner of the restaurant. "Did I say something wrong?" I asked. "On the contrary, you said exactly the right thing." She studied me with those sharp gray eyes. "You know, Dante has brought women around before. Beautiful women, sophisticated women, women who knew exactly what our family business entailed." My heart sank. "Oh, but do you know what they all had in common?" I shook my head. "They wanted to change him." Francesca's voice was soft but firm. "They saw his power, his money, his influence, and they thought they could reform him, make him into something safer, more acceptable." "And I don't?" I asked, confused. "You accept him as he is. You're not trying to save him or fix him or turn him into someone else. You're just loving him." She smiled. "That's rarer than you might think. I love all of him," I admitted. "Even the parts that should probably scare me." "Good, because the parts that should scare you are the parts that will keep you safe." Francesca patted my arm. "Welcome to the family, dear." It was later, as we were driving home, that Dante brought up what I'd said to his uncle. "You really want to know?" he asked. "About the business?" "Everything," I confirmed. He was quiet for several miles. Then, "We run legitimate businesses, restaurants, construction, real estate development, but we also provide services that aren't strictly legal." "What kind of services?" "Protection, mediation of disputes. Sometimes we facilitate transactions that need to happen outside normal channels." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "And sometimes we eliminate problems that can't be solved through conventional means." "Eliminate," I repeated. "You mean, sometimes," his voice was matter-of-fact, "when there's no other choice. When someone threatens our family or our interests in negotiations fail." I absorbed this information. "Have you ever, personally?" "Yes. One word. Simple and honest and chilling." "Does that change how you feel about me?" he asked quietly. I considered lying, telling him it didn't matter, but he'd asked for honesty. "It scares me," I admitted, "but it doesn't change how I feel about you." It just means I need to understand that part of your world, too. He pulled the car over suddenly, parking on the side of the quiet road. In the darkness, his eyes looked almost black instead of silver. Elena, I need you to understand something. The man you fell in love with, the one who brings you flowers and listens to you talk about books, that's real. That's who I am with you. But I'm also capable of violence when it's necessary. I've made choices that would horrify most people. Do you regret them? Some of them, but not the ones I made to protect my family. I reached over and took his hand. Then I'll learn to live with them too. He brought my hand to his lips, pressing a reverent kiss to my palm. I don't deserve you. Lucky for you, that's not how love works. Life fell into a strange new rhythm over the next 2 weeks. I moved officially into Dante's house, though I kept my job at the library, partly because I loved it, and partly because Dante thought maintaining some normalcy was important for my psychological well-being. The media attention gradually died down as other scandals took precedence. I learned to ignore the occasional photographer who still lurked outside the library, and to navigate the curious stares of townspeople who now knew exactly who I was dating. I was beginning to think we'd weathered the worst of it. I was wrong. It was a Thursday morning, and I was opening the library as usual, when I noticed something was off. The front door was unlocked, though I distinctly remembered securing it the night before. My keys were shaking in my hand as I pushed the door open. "Hello?" I called softly. No answer. I stepped inside cautiously, reaching for the light switch. The fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, illuminating the main reading area. Everything looked normal. Almost. Then I saw it. On the circulation desk where I'd left neat stacks of returned books, there was a single red rose, beautiful and fresh, with a white envelope tied to the stem with a black ribbon. My blood turned to ice. I knew I should call Dante immediately, should follow his instructions about any unusual situations. But curiosity, my perpetual weakness, made me approach the desk. The envelope had my name written on it in elegant script. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "My dear Elena, you don't know me, but I know all about you. I know where you work, where you live, what time you have your morning coffee. I know you've become very important to Dante Castellano. That makes you very important to me. I have a proposition for you. Meet me at Riverside Park tonight at midnight, alone. Come to the old gazebo by the lake. If you don't come, or if you bring company, people you care about will start getting hurt. Don't test me on this. A friend." The letter fluttered from my numb fingers. Someone had been in the library. Someone had been watching me. Someone was threatening the people I cared about. I fumbled for my phone, dialing Dante's number with shaking hands. "Elena, what's wrong?" He could hear the panic in my voice immediately. "Someone was in the library. They left me a letter. They want to meet me tonight. Get out of there, now. Lock the door and get out and wait for Marco. He's 5 minutes away. Dante, Elena, get out of the building right now. Don't touch anything else. Don't talk to anyone. Just get outside where there are witnesses." I followed his instructions, my heart hammering as I locked up the library and stood on the busy sidewalk. True to his word, Marco arrived within 5 minutes, his face grim. "Boss wants to see the letter," he said without preamble. The drive to Dante's office, a legitimate construction company that served as the front for his other businesses, felt like it took hours instead of 20 minutes. By the time we arrived, Dante was pacing like a caged animal, Vincent and several other men I didn't recognize standing around looking equally tense. The moment he saw me, Dante pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, his hands running over me checking for injuries. "I'm fine. Just scared. Let me see the letter." I handed it over, watching his face grow progressively darker as he read. When he finished, he passed it to Vincent, who cursed colorfully in Italian. "Do you recognize the handwriting?" Vincent asked. "No, but I know who this is from." Dante's voice was deadly calm, which somehow made it more frightening than if he'd been shouting. "Antonio Russo." "Who's Antonio Russo?" I asked. "A problem I thought I'd solved 6 months ago," Dante replied grimly. "His family has been trying to move into our territory. We've been discouraging them. And now he wants to use me to get to you." "It appears so." Dante's jaw was tight with controlled rage, which means he's made a very serious mistake. "What do we do?" I asked. "We?" Dante's eyes snapped to mine. "You don't do anything. You stay here where you're safe while I handle this." But the letter says, "The letter is bullshit," Dante interrupted. "Russo isn't stupid enough to actually hurt you. He knows that would mean his death and the death of everyone he cares about. This is posturing. What if you're wrong?" "I'm not wrong." But I could see the worry in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He wasn't as certain as he wanted me to believe. "There has to be another way," I said. "What if I meet with him? What if I can—" "Absolutely not." Dante's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You are not meeting with Antonio Russo under any circumstances. But if he's willing to talk—" "Elena." Dante cupped my face in his hands, forcing me to meet his eyes. "This man has killed people for far less than what I've done to his business. You think he's going to have a reasonable conversation with you and then walk away? So, what's the alternative? We just wait for him to escalate?" "The alternative is that I remind him why crossing the Castellano family is a mistake people only make once." The cold finality in his voice sent chills down my spine. This was the side of Dante I'd known existed, but hadn't fully seen before. The dangerous man who'd built an empire through intelligence, intimidation, and when necessary, violence. "I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me," I whispered. "No one is going to get hurt because of you," he said firmly. "But Antonio Russo is going to get hurt because of what he's chosen to do." That evening, I was effectively under house arrest. Dante had stationed guards around the property and refused to let me out of his sight. We ate dinner in tense silence, both lost in our own thoughts. It was around 9 o'clock when Dante's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and his expression hardened. "Russo," he answered curtly. I could hear the other man's voice but couldn't make out the words. Dante listened for several minutes, his face growing progressively more dangerous. "Let me make something very clear to you, Antonio," Dante finally said, his voice deadly quiet. "Elena Rossi is under my protection. She is mine in every way that matters. If you so much as breathe in her direction again, I will make you watch while I burn your entire organization to the ground, and then I'll kill you slowly enough that you'll beg for death long before I grant it." A pause. Then Dante smiled, a cold, predatory expression that made my blood freeze. "Oh, and Antonio, if you think I'm bluffing, ask your cousin Marco what happened to the last man who threatened something that belonged to me." He hung up. "What did he want?" I asked. "To negotiate. He thinks he can use you as leverage to get me to back off his territory." "And you told him?" "I told him that touching you would be the last mistake he ever made." There was something in his tone, something possessive and absolute, that sent heat spiraling through me despite the circumstances. "Dante," I said softly, "when you said I was yours, I meant it." His silver eyes found mine across the room. Completely, irrevocably, forever. The intensity of his gaze made me feel naked, exposed, claimed in ways I'd never experienced before. "Is that what you want?" he asked, moving closer. "To be mine?" "Yes," I breathed, even knowing what that means. The danger, the violence, the constant threat, especially knowing what it means. He was in front of me now, his hand sliding into my hair, tilting my face up to his. "Then say it," he commanded softly. "I'm yours. Again, I'm yours, Dante. Completely." He kissed me then, deep and claiming and desperate, like he was trying to brand his ownership on my soul. I melted into him, every nerve ending alive with want and need and love so intense it was almost frightening. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "We should go to bed," he said, his voice rough. "Together? If that's what you want." It was. God help me. Despite everything that had happened today, despite the danger we were in, all I wanted was to be as close to him as possible. "It's what I want," I confirmed. For the first time since this morning, Dante smiled, really smiled, warm and genuine and full of love. "Then come with me." The next morning, I woke up in Dante's arms feeling safer and more complete than I ever had in my life. The sunlight streaming through the windows made everything feel hopeful, like maybe we really could handle whatever came our way. That optimism lasted exactly until I checked my phone. There were 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, and hundreds of social media notifications. My hands shook as I opened the first text, from a number I didn't recognize. "Saw the news. Can't believe you're with a murderer." "Dante," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I think we have a problem." He was instantly alert, taking my phone and scrolling through the messages with growing alarm. "What news?" I asked. "What are they talking about?" Instead of answering, he turned on the television. The morning news was already on, and I watched in horror as my photograph appeared on screen alongside footage of a crime scene. Castellano organization's violent response to recent territorial disputes, the reporter was saying. 3 members of the Russo family were found dead early this morning in what police are calling an execution-style killing. This comes just hours after reports that Dante Castellano's girlfriend, Elena Rossi, received threatening communications from the rival family. The screen switched to a file photo of Dante, then back to my picture. Sources close to the investigation suggest that the killings were retaliation for threats made against Miss Rossi, leading some to question whether the librarian-turned-mafia girlfriend knew about the planned violence. "Turn it off," I said faintly. Dante muted the television but didn't turn it off. The images kept playing. Crime scene tape, body bags, my face next to headlines calling me everything from "the librarian who started a war" to "mafia princess's deadly love." "You killed them," I said. Not really a question. "Yes. All 3 of them. Yes. Because they threatened me. Because they made the mistake of thinking they could use you against me." I stared at him. This man I loved. This man who had just killed 3 people to protect me. In the morning light, he looked perfectly normal, rumpled from sleep, concerned about my reaction, still achingly handsome, not like a killer. "The whole world thinks I knew," I said quietly. "They think I wanted this to happen. The whole world doesn't matter. Only you matter. Dante, 3 men are dead. 3 men who would have killed you without hesitation if they thought it would serve their purposes." He replied matter-of-factly. "I'm not sorry they're dead, Elena. I'm only sorry you have to see the aftermath." My phone buzzed with another message. This one was from my mother. "Elena, please call me. People are saying terrible things. I'm worried about you." "I have to call my family," I said. "They're probably terrified." "Of course. But when I tried to call my mother, she didn't answer. Neither did my father, or my sister. I tried my best friend from college, straight to voicemail. They're not answering," I told Dante, panic rising in my chest. "Give it time. This is a shock for them. What if they don't want to talk to me anymore? What if they think I'm some kind of monster?" Dante sat beside me on the bed, pulling me into his arms. "Then they don't deserve you. That's easy for you to say. You've never had a normal family." I regretted the words the moment they left my mouth. Dante went very still. "You're right," he said quietly. "I haven't. I was born into this world, Elena. I never had a choice about the violence, the moral ambiguity, the constant danger. But you did have a choice. You chose me anyway. I did choose you," I confirmed. "But I didn't choose this. I didn't choose to be responsible for 3 deaths." "You're not responsible, aren't I?" I pulled away from him, suddenly needing space. "If I hadn't gotten involved with you, those men would still be alive. If you hadn't gotten involved with me, those men would have found another excuse for violence eventually. That's who they were, Elena. That's what they did. But not today. Not because of me." We stared at each other across the suddenly vast space of the bedroom. I could see the hurt in his eyes, but also understanding. He knew I was struggling with the reality of his world in a way I never had before. "What do you need?" he asked finally. I paused, trying to figure out what I actually needed. "I need to not be headlines. I need to not have my picture next to crime scene photos. I need my family to answer their phones. The first 2 I can't control. The media will move on eventually. But this is big news. As for your family," he shrugged helplessly, "they'll either accept who you are now, or they won't. And if they don't, then you'll build a new family. With me." It was a simple statement, but it carried the weight of a promise. Whatever happened, however much my old life fell apart, he would be there. "The whole world thinks I'm a mafia princess now," I said. "Are you?" I considered the question seriously. Was I? I was living in his house, under his protection, complicit in his world, even if I didn't participate directly. I was planning a future with a man who solved problems with violence. "I guess I am," I admitted. "And how does that feel?" "Terrifying. Exhilarating. Like I'm becoming someone I never thought I could be. Good or bad? I don't know yet." Dante stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the grounds where his security team was stationed. "There's something else," he said without turning around. "What?" "Last night when I told Russo that you were mine, when I made it clear that threatening you meant war," he turned to face me. That wasn't just posturing, Elena. In our world, when a man claims a woman the way I claimed you, it means something specific. What does it mean? It means you're not just my girlfriend. You're my woman, my future wife, the mother of my future children. It means that in the eyes of every family, every rival, every ally, you're already a Castellano. My heart stopped. You didn't ask me. You're right. I didn't. I was protecting you, and I acted on instinct. His voice was carefully controlled, but the words are out there now. I told the entire underworld that Elena Rossi belongs to me completely and permanently. And that's the sentence, I said slowly, understanding flooding through me. That's the one sentence that made every woman hate me. What do you mean? I gestured at my phone, still buzzing with notifications. Look at the messages, Dante. Look at social media. Half the women in the city are calling me names because they think I manipulated you into killing for me. The other half are calling me names because they're jealous that the most powerful man in the region chose me. He moved back to the bed, sitting close enough to touch but not quite touching. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Being chosen by me? I looked at this complicated, dangerous, devoted man who had just turned his world upside down to protect me, who had made me a target and a princess in the same breath, who loved me enough to kill for me, and respected me enough to let me choose what came next. Ask me in a year, I said finally. And in the meantime, we figure out how to live with the choices we've made. He reached for my hand, threading our fingers together. Together. 3 months later, I was a different person entirely. Not physically. I was still the same average-height brunette with a tendency to bite my lip when nervous. But everything else had changed. I'd learned to navigate the complex social hierarchy of Dante's world, where respect was currency and perception was everything. I'd learned to spot undercover photographers and how to exit a restaurant through the kitchen when necessary. I'd learned the difference between idle gossip and genuine threats. Most importantly, I'd learned that love was more complicated than any romance novel had ever suggested. Elena, Dante's voice called from downstairs. Are you ready? Almost, I called back, checking my reflection one final time. Tonight was the annual Castellano Family Charity Gala, my first major public appearance since the Russo incident. The dress Dante had bought me was stunning, midnight blue silk that hugged my curves and made me feel like someone worthy of standing beside him. When I came downstairs, the look in his eyes made all the preparation worthwhile. Beautiful, he said simply, offering me his arm. You clean up pretty well yourself, I replied, admiring him in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. The gala was being held at the Grand Ballroom downtown, the kind of elegant venue I'd only seen in movies before. As our car pulled up to the red carpet, I could see the photographers waiting. Remember, Dante said quietly, you belong here. You belong with me. I squeezed his hand. I know. And I did know, finally. It had taken 3 months of learning to live in the public eye. 3 months of death threats and marriage proposals from strangers. 3 months of watching Dante handle crises with a combination of intelligence and ruthlessness that still sometimes took my breath away. But I belonged here, beside him, in this world, as the woman who had somehow managed to capture the heart of a man everyone else feared. The gala went smoothly, until about an hour before the end. I was talking with Francesca and some of the other family wives when I noticed a commotion near the entrance. Vincent appeared at my elbow. Mrs. Castellano, he said quietly, and I felt a little thrill at the title even though we weren't married yet. The boss needs to speak with you. I found Dante in a private room off the main ballroom, his face grim. What's wrong? I asked immediately. Federal agents just raided 3 of our warehouses, he said without preamble. They have warrants, which means someone's been talking. What does that mean for us? It means things are about to get very complicated very quickly. He took my hands in his. Elena, I need you to listen to me carefully. There's a good chance I'm going to be arrested in the next few days. My blood ran cold. Arrested for what? RICO charges, probably. Racketeering, conspiracy, maybe tax evasion. They've been building a case for months. But you haven't done anything. I started, then stopped. Of course he'd done things. We both knew exactly what he'd done. I need to know that you'll be okay if I'm not here to protect you, he continued. Vincent will look after you, and my mother will make sure you have everything you need. But Elena, if this goes badly, if I go to prison for a long time, don't. I interrupted. Don't say it. I need to say it. If I go to prison, you should move on. Find someone normal. Someone who can give you the life you deserve. Stop. I cupped his face in my hands, forcing him to look at me. Dante Castellano, I have spent 3 months learning to be the woman worthy of you. I have given up my old life, my privacy, my safety. I have chosen this world, chosen you, chosen us. Do you really think I'm going to walk away now because things got difficult? Elena, I love you, I said fiercely. All of you. The good parts and the dangerous parts and the complicated parts. If you go to prison, I'll wait for you. If you don't, we'll figure out the rest together. But I am not going anywhere. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, love, and something that looked like amazement. You realize what you're signing up for? He asked. Being the girlfriend of a man in federal prison? The scrutiny, the judgment, the years of waiting? I realize that I'm signing up to love you through whatever comes next, I replied. Just like you loved me through becoming someone I never thought I could be. He kissed me then, soft and desperate and full of promises neither of us might be able to keep. Marry me, he said against my lips. What? Marry me. Now, tonight, before they arrest me. I want you to be my wife, not just my girlfriend. I want you to have legal protections and family status and everything that comes with being a Castellano. Dante, that's crazy. Everything about us has been crazy from the beginning, he pointed out. Why stop now? I stared at him. This man who had turned my world upside down with a single glance in a library 6 months ago. This man who had shown me what it meant to be truly seen, truly wanted, truly loved. Okay, I said. Okay? Yes, I'll marry you. Tonight, tomorrow, whenever you want. His smile was blinding. I love you, Elena Rossini. Soon to be Elena Castellano. I love you too. The federal case against Dante fell apart when their key witness disappeared. Not permanently, Vincent assured me. Just relocated somewhere tropical with a new identity and a generous retirement fund. Sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. We were married on New Year's Eve, in a small ceremony at the family church, surrounded by people who had become my new family. My biological family had slowly started speaking to me again, though our relationship would never be quite the same. I still worked at the library 3 days a week, though now I had a security detail that tried to look inconspicuous while ensuring my safety. The other librarians had gotten used to men in expensive suits occasionally checking the stacks for unusual activity. What are you thinking about? Dante asked, finding me on the terrace of our house, looking out at the gardens where we'd soon host our first charity event as a married couple. Just everything, I said, leaning back against his chest as his arms wrapped around me. A year ago, I was nobody. Now I'm Elena Castellano, wife of the most feared man in 3 states, hostess of charity galas, and somehow, inexplicably, happy. Somehow, inexplicably? He sounded amused. Well, if someone had told me I'd fall in love with a mafia boss and enjoy being married to him, I'd have suggested therapy. And now, I turned in his arms, studying the face I'd come to love more than my own life. Now I know that love doesn't always make sense. Sometimes it just makes everything else make sense instead. Very philosophical for a Tuesday evening. I learned from the best. He kissed me, soft and sweet, and full of promises about the future we were building together. When we broke apart, his eyes were serious. Any regrets? He asked. About the life you gave up? I considered the question honestly. I thought about my old apartment above the bakery, my quiet evenings with books, my invisible existence where no one bothered me, and I bothered no one. Just one, I said finally. His face fell slightly. What? I regret that it took me 23 years to find you. His smile was answer enough. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, I found a package on my dresser, clearly a gift from Dante, though he'd already disappeared into his office for a late phone call. Inside was a first edition copy of Pride and Prejudice, my favorite novel, and a note in his familiar handwriting. To my dearest Elena, you once told me you wanted to believe in happy endings. I hope I've proven that they exist, even for people like us, especially for people like us. All my love, always, your devoted husband. I smiled, carefully placing the book on my nightstand next to the business card that had started everything. I'd kept it as a reminder of how much could change in a single moment of courage. From downstairs, I could hear Dante ending his call, his footsteps on the stairs as he came to bed. In a few minutes, he'd be beside me, and we'd fall asleep wrapped around each other like we had every night since our wedding. Tomorrow, there would be new challenges. There always were, in our world. Business rivals, federal investigations, family politics, and the constant pressure of living in the public eye. But tonight, there was just us, the invisible librarian and the mafia boss who had somehow found forever in each other. I thought about all those romance novels I'd read over the years, with their predictable plots and guaranteed happy endings. None of them had prepared me for the reality of loving someone whose world was built on danger and moral ambiguity, but none of them had prepared me for how beautiful that love could be either. As Dante came into our bedroom, his tie already loosened and his jacket slung over his shoulder, I realized that my story, our story, was better than any novel I'd ever read, because it was real, complicated and dangerous and sometimes terrifying, but real, and it was ours. "Come to bed, Mrs. Castellano," he said, and even after 6 months of marriage, the title still sent warmth spiraling through me. "On my way, Mr. Castellano." He laughed, the sound rich and warm and full of promise. "I love the sound of that," he said. "Which part?" "All of it. You, me, us. The whole impossible, beautiful mess of it." I crossed the room to him, standing on my toes to kiss him softly. "Me too. No regrets. Never again," I promised. "Not about choosing you, not about this life, not about becoming someone I never thought I could be. And what's that?" "Happy," I said simply. I chose to be happy. Outside our bedroom windows, the city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sounds of the world continuing on, unaware that in this house, in this room, two people who should never have found each other had somehow managed to build forever. It wasn't the life I'd planned. It wasn't safe or predictable, or anything like the quiet existence I'd thought I wanted, but it was love. Real, complicated, dangerous, beautiful love. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.